All right, good evening, everyone. It's 7:03, and at this time I'd like to call the, excuse me, the Hamilton Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll start out with some announcements and board openings. We have one opening for the Board of Health. Town Hall Building Committee, we have 2 openings. And then announcements, we have the annual town meeting coming up April 6th at 9 a.m. in the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Auditorium. There'll also be a breakfast provided if you want to come a little bit early. And if you have children, the National Honor Society is offering babysitting at the rec center. You just have to look on, I think, on the Facebook page, and you can sign up if there's any spaces left. And then we also have the annual town election on Thursday, April 11th, 2019, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Polls will be open at the Hamilton Wenham Recreation Gymnasium. And now we have a section for public comment. If anybody wants to come up and comment, they're more than welcome to come to the podium to speak. Come right up.
Is this working?
Working. Just state your name and continue.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Town Manager Developments, members of the board, thank you. My name is Peter Conant. Joe tells me I have 3 minutes, so I intend to take 2. My company has been developing affordable housing under the Section 8 and 40B program for 40 years, and has recently acquired control of the Gordon Conwell site on Bridge Street of 20 acres. We intend to file a 40B application for 43 small cottage size single-family homes, and to do that we would like to request that you sign our application as a 40B friendly or local initiative permit. I have some drawings with me which you'll be glad to hear I'm not going to present tonight. We've had meetings with the neighborhood, planning board, town planner, fire chief, Affordable Housing Trust. This is my first appearance before you, and we intend to do, as the months go on, whatever makes sense for public information and making ourselves available. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. All right, any other comments tonight? Okay. Now we'll move on to Selectmen Town Manager reports. We'll start with Jeff on the end there. Jeff, any updates?
Just very quickly, we're going to hear tonight from the Town Hall Building Committee. Mike is here, so we'll hear about that a little bit. And I also attended the Patton Homestead presentation to the public, and they're going to be here this evening, so I'll let them talk to that directly. I wasn't able to go to the school committee meeting, but I did watch it on TV. Of our interest, of particular interest, would be their discussion about the capital improvement program. And the long and short of it is that they take, my takeaway anyway, and Sean, I guess you were there, my takeaway was they take it very seriously. It's a high priority for them to prioritize and update their list of capital improvements. I have actually copies here, if you don't mind taking one, Joe, pass it around, of their most updated list of capital improvements, but I think this even needs updating. So, I mean, they talked about getting through town meeting and elections, and that this would be one of their priorities moving forward. So, that's it.
Great, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Allison, we'll start with you on the other end now.
I'm sure Joe will talk about it, but we have good news for Verizon Wireless Cell Tower. I haven't attended the many meetings this week. I did get, though, through the mail, the notice from our water department that we have contaminants in our water. Unfortunately, I got it in the mail, as all of you did. I didn't get any notification as selectmen. And when I read the flyer, it tells us to go to the town website for more information, but there is no more information on the town website. And it said that we did not meet EPA standards as far as notifying our residents in December. So that tonight has me in a quandary.
Fair enough. Any other reports?
Nope.
Bill?
Let's see, for the planning board, we'll talk about the warrant articles. They have 3 they've been working on and modifying them up to the last minute, making sure Donna's blessed the language accordingly. Talk about that. And then I think tomorrow starts the review of the Green Meadows. I think that's the first meeting with the
tomorrow.
The application for that property. And I think they finished now as well the Hamilton housing survey, so that will get published and put on the website from all their work on that. I have no updates currently on the Affordable Housing Trust, although, you know, we'll see what happens with the project that we just talked about and the Asbury property that might be put up to sale to us on a closed sale. So no other updates right now.
All right. I have just a few. The Conservation Commission voted to issue a certificate of compliance for the Bridge Street Culvert Replacement Project. And they finalized a new vegetation management agreement with the Patton Ridge condos. Chips and mulch will be spread beneath the beech trees and the cul-de-sac on both Ridge and the Conservation Commission's open space land to reduce weeds there in inadvertent mowing of some open space land will be reduced based on an agreed plan with the HCC and the association. They've been working on it for a number of months. And then Soltude Lake Management will be working on the Weaver Pond soon, applying an herbicide directly to the nuisance weeds in the pond. That's a pond at Patton Park. And they'll be doing this. They'll be going to be posting notices around the pond about the treatment. And then in the fall, they're going to hydro rake it for the plant removal portion of the project. They did this same work about 8 years ago, let's see, 2010, when they were known as Aquatic Technology Control Incorporated. I think that was the name of it. But we've had this done before, and it will hopefully clean up the pond and make it a little bit better for everybody down there. Also, the rain barrel program that we've done the last couple of years, we're going to start that again coming up probably in the next week or so. And you can order a discounted rain barrel and et cetera from the Great American Rain Barrel Company. And the last day of the order will be May 12th. We'll have some demos here at Town Hall probably and some order forms. You can also do it online. We'll have a link on the website. And the pickup for those will be May 18th at the DPW yard during their Saturday hours. Also, I noticed the other day at the park, our cannons are back, thanks to the CPC. They look great, all nice and painted and shiny, new wheels on them. That was kind of a longer project, but they look great. And that's it for me.
You want me to do it?
I'll let you do it.
To follow up on what Allison had said, the town received news today from our attorneys that the judge in the Varsity Wireless case ruled in favor of Varsity Wireless. So that judgment will be getting posted, and there'll be a 30-day appeal period. There's not really a whole lot to say about that to this point because we have to wait out the appeal period. But once the appeal period passes, if it passes without an appeal, Varsity Wireless will be able to move forward with the project. If it gets appealed, it'll be back in front of the judge again. So we'll see what happens. I have a very short town manager report this week only because most of our stuff is wrapped up trying to get ready for town meeting. And I'm going to be even briefer here. Before I start that, I will say, I'll take the hit on the failure to notify you guys sooner about the water issue. What had happened, and Tim Olson's here, he'll provide you a little more substance in a few moments, but what had happened was we had a failure of a piece of equipment up at the plant back in November, I think. Tim will correct me on the timeline. And that caused a spike in one of the readings above what DEP requires. We had been working with them. It's an operational issue for several months. It didn't look like something that had to be reported until we were notified that our rolling 3-month average or whatever it is was still too high because of that one spike. We got notified by DEP last week that we were going to have to do this. So I probably could have called you each or sent you a quick email to let you know. I apologize that we didn't do that, but this was really kind of just something that was required of us by DEP. It's not an ongoing, regular thing as far as the reading goes, but I'll let Tim provide more detail on that when we get there. Everybody knows the town meeting is on Saturday. In preparation for the town meeting on Saturday, I believe Jeff is going to be at the Council on Aging at 10:30 on Wednesday morning to talk about the town hall building project, and I believe somebody from Patton Homestead Inc., Mark Johnson, is planning to be there also to talk about the request and the budget for the Patton Homestead this year. So I will be available at that for both those sessions, just in case anybody has any questions or there's anything I can learn while we're there. At the last Board of Selectmen's meeting on March 18th, the board voted to approve and authorize myself and Chief Stevens to enter into agreements establishing the school resource officer. The board also asked us to make sure that the school department passed those as well, and they did. So updated budget figures have been included in the script and the warrant script for town meeting, and those budget figures have been adjusted on both the school side and the town side. So the school resource officer is only showing up in the town budget now, effective the school committee's vote last week. On the self-sufficiency of the Patton Homestead, the new Patton director, Kaylee Perret, and I had a presentation of the Patton Homestead business plan last Thursday night here. We had a little bit of programming issue. We weren't able to broadcast from the very beginning of the movie for some reason, but we missed about the first 10 minutes, but most of the presentation was broadcast on HWCAM, and I'm hoping that they're going to continue to broadcast it. The business plan and our PowerPoint are up on the town website to be reviewed by anybody that wants, and folks are free to call in and ask questions. I will also be providing a short recap of that later in the meeting tonight. My report also includes very brief updates on the Chabaco Road project, the town hall renovations, funding, and the master plan and housing. The Patrick Reffett in the Planning and Inspections Department reached out to us today. We have a final version of the survey that was done by the consultants, and that has been forwarded. I believe it's been forwarded to all of you, and is also going to be put on the town website. Hard copies have been put at places like the library, the Council on Aging, other spots around town, so people can get a hold of it. So we hope that's helpful to people as we try to move forward with a master plan housing component. And at this point, if you'd allow, I think we should hear from Tim on the notices that everybody got in their mail this weekend.
Sounds good to me.
Good evening. Tim Olson, Department of Public Works Director. As you were aware, we did have an exceedance in our disinfection byproducts, THMs levels in the system. We sent out, per DEP requirements, we sent out a public notice indicating what the exceedance was and what we should do as a community, and the next steps forward that we're looking and preparing to do. So hopefully everybody got this. I do also have, I'm going to pass this around real quick.
The board already has it in the.
Oh, yeah.
They were given it in their packets.
Okay. The 4-page?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, but there's copies on the table too for people
anyway,
who want them.
so what this is now that you guys have it, hopefully you had some time to digest it, is an overview of what we've been experiencing for quite some time at the treatment plant. I know it's quite lengthy, but it gives a pretty good idea of the challenges and where we were and where we came, and where we plan to go in the future. You know, currently our source water has organics present in it. The original plant, and I don't need to rehash too much of the past, but the original plant was not designed to take out organics. So it was more an iron and manganese removal system. That was what the town purchased, and that was what was installed. So over time, with the environment as well as drought conditions, TOCs, total organic compound, carbons have been included and more present in our system and in the source water. So we need to make some recommendations, and that's kind of what the town article is. I know this kind of has gone in between or kind of on each other. This was something we talked about as a group with the capital committee and the town manager. We did see, now that we've gone over into the new upgrades that we had, into the design, back to the original design, we have had THMs creeping up in the system, never in an exceedance amount, but it was something that we knew that back in the time we were talking about the upgrades, we may have issues with to deal with in the future. They are present. They, like I said, are not over the exceedance amount, except for this spike that we had due to infrastructure failure at the water plant. So before that spike, we had levels controlled. The spike happened, and now since December, the levels are back controlled underneath the MCL, maximum contaminant level. So we have talked to DEP per guidelines, per EPA guidelines. We did have to public notify. We are making and performing some temporary measures to control that number, but they are short-term, temporary, and we need to somewhat or come up with a long-term plan. What we talked about with the engineering group is how to remove the TOCs prior to filtration. Since our plant can't handle and treat TOCs, a way to do this is a new system. It's basically like a brine system. They use ion exchange technology, and it would be a pre-treatment prior to filtration. It would be a secondary building up there, possibly in addition to the existing plant. It would basically come in, raw water would come into that pre-treatment, come back out, and then enter in the existing facility and filtration process. What we did notice was that when our THM levels were high, they seemed to be generated more at the plant. And then over time, water age, the use of chlorine as an oxidant, as well as the organics in the system, the THM levels grow through the distribution. Through the dead end pipes is something that water age, the turnover, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we are looking to do. As a temporary measure, we are using flushing units, and this would, in essence, this pre-treatment process would reduce or eliminate the organics prior to filtration. Therefore, THMs would not develop at the plant and therefore be carried through the system. We did a desktop pilot study. We sent our raw water samples out to the company. I just got word today that the pilot study was favorable. They feel like they could meet the TOC, the organic removal, and therefore the compounds, the THM byproducts, would not form in the system if we can remove it prior to filtration. Like I said, it kind of goes on in line with our article at town meeting. This problem we've faced for the higher levels, not exceedance, but we've seen for a period of time since we've made those upgrades. And we were trying to stay ahead of it, and that's what the capital ask was for. And it just so happened to be at around the same time town meeting and the exceedance was issued, or the public notice was issued because of the exceedance. So I'm hoping for a favorable vote at town meeting. If we don't get a favorable vote, chances are DEP would place a consent order on us to make long-term repairs to the system and, in essence, treat the water by a pre-treatment process. So we're trying to stay ahead of it. We're trying to keep ahead of DEP. They are going to be looking for a long-term solution, and that's what we are looking to do. Chances are, if we get the money at town meeting, we could probably have a project put together for a possible fall-winter project. So a fairly short turnaround. Obviously, that would include DEP permitting. but it seems like they would be receptive to our goals and the project we put forward to them.
Likely to expedite the permitting process. So, again, sorry about the late notice to the board. We're really sorry that we actually had to do this, but, you know, it is a problem that the town's known about for a long time. It's actually why the town went to switching out to the green sand previously, but then that forced the plant not to operate optimally. So we've now gone back to the original organization of the plant so that it will work properly, but we're back at square one as far as dealing with the organic compounds in the water. So we tried to get ahead of this, as Tim said, by putting this article on the warrant back in the fall, even before we had the exceedance. The exceedance was related to an issue with, in that one instance, that exceedance was related to the issue with equipment at the plant. Pipe broke,
Yep.
allowed sludge to be pulled back into the system, and that kind of spiked everything.
Right.
We cleaned that up, but we are still at risk of going over the exceedance level in the
Right.
future.
Yeah, our levels are below the MCL, but they are not, in my mind, low enough that I want to make sure they're low, that if we did have any issues, that we're not exceeding. And the source of the problem has been determined at the plant, and we currently have made some other temporary measures. We've taken Idlewood 2 offline. That seems to be the well that has the most organics present. And we've taken that offline. We're doing some routine flushing. We're using some flushing units in the system to turn the water over to reduce the age. So we're making some temporary measures to control the level. But DEP, like I said, DEP is going to want a long-term solution. And looking forward to town to providing that. So.
Any questions?
So thank you, and I understand it happens, but I just want to reiterate, as the Board of Selectmen are the water commissioners for the town, so we should have been notified before a notification went out to the town. I do see that now that this flyer is up on the website.
That's correct.
But the flyer states, and on the website it states, for more information, please visit the website, hamiltonma.gov, but there is no additional information on the website.
Right. Yep, and I plan to put the summary. I wanted to make sure you guys were
We're
well.
okay with it.
Yep, that you guys were okay with the summary going forward. It was something that the engineer and I put together as kind of a recap of like I said, the past, present, and future. And the information that I would like, there was other information that I would like to include in that notification. We have to go through a process with DEP to get approved of that notification. So they ultimately have the say of what goes out. I would have liked to tell the people that we have the levels to a level that it's controlled. It was a infrastructure issue. There was a spike, but the way it's calculated with the annual running average, that spike, that high read, even though we've controlled since then, we've controlled the levels, that high read still factors in the equation. I think that I believe it's December, from December to this point, our levels have been below by doing the routine flushing and the temporary measures. We've been able to control the level. We still are being kind of influenced by that large read that we got for a short period of time.
How much water do we waste with the temporary measures? Is it a significant amount to flush, or?
It actually is not. We purchased some flushing units that are actually controlled by your iPhone and like an application. We can control the timing. So it's a lot better. Before, it was like a 365, 24/7 bleeder in the system that I know DEP wanted us to remove. Now we have these units that it's controlled. We can calculate the amount of water, so we can record it, and we can calculate and add it into the statistics report that I submit every year. So it's a quantified number, which is more acceptable. It's not the ultimate
It's not
answer.
great, but
so.
it's not
But
as
it
bad as it
will
was.
go away with this proposed plant upgrades, right?
Right.
And then will this affect any water ban for this season until we get?
So I'm not sure. I mean, we always have the seasonal ban
Yep.
from May to September. But if there is any other ban put on because of more of an operational infrastructure issue, it's yet to be determined. We have, like I said, we have Idlewood 2, which is one of our main producing wells. We currently have that offline. That is used significantly in the summer, the peak seasons. We are trying to go without. But ultimately, the town needs to plan to bring those back online, and I'm reluctant to do so until we have a plan put forward and then implemented. I'd really like to have the ability to treat that water because it is a good producing well. It's just the quality of the water is not ideal. So we'll see how the larger peak seasons, the demand rises up and see if we can. Right now, we're doing very well. The upgrades that we made in the past, we've been able to push out probably almost twice the water. We've been able to flush the system through an aggressive flushing program through the hydrants, which hadn't happened in a few years. So we've made very good strides forward. Our iron and manganese levels are very, very good and very low. Much better than before. Our operator at the plant is much more, I wouldn't say happier, but he controlling the plant. He's able to have some shutdowns during the day. He's able to be able to look at it, see what's going on, make adjustments. Prior to the work, a plant was most like a hybrid plant, and we didn't really have anybody we could call or talk with. It was a Filtronics proprietary plant with green sand media, and I would challenge to see if there was any other one like that in the country.
Corn base.
Yeah. So now we've brought it back, and it's something that we can control. It's something that we can talk with, and we just need to make some improvements on the pre-filtration side.
And so maybe a little bit more to your point, Bill, talking about the ban and stuff, that if this passes at town meeting and we do the construction of the additional pretreatment addition / building off of the plant, in our discussion the other day when we were out of the plant, it seemed like it wouldn't disrupt that much. It would you would build it and then connect, so it wouldn't be a major disruption.
We can build it in a way that if we have the operator fills the tanks in the clear well into the maximum level, the way it would be constructed was adjacent to the plant with minimal impact. There would be a planned shutdown. There would be some pipes cut out. The raw water piping would be cut out of the way, and some valve schemes would be put in to reduce the outage time. So very minimal, and then they could work and build adjacent without any impact to the residents.
Okay.
Any questions, Jeff, over there?
Yeah, actually, Tim, could you describe in layman's terms what organics exist of? I mean, a lot of people automatically jump to bad things like E. coli and things like that. When you say organics, there's organics in the water, what exactly are you talking about?
I mean, I'm not a chemist, but I know like even leaves, decay, groundwater sources, that is where we pull those wells is basically a swamp. So over time, a lot of that leaf organic material, dirt, loam, I mean, it could be a variety of things that would be put in there. And I'm not, like I said, there's probably some other things in there. The E. coli and bacteria, we do, that's why we disinfect. When we get the raw water coming in, we do have a process, a high-level disinfection process. Using, we disinfect with chlorine, which is very effective, but with the chemistry of the water, it also creates these issues that we need to solve. So we've never, since I've been here, the water quality has been decent. We haven't had any bacteria or E. coli issues to deal with. This is by far not that at all. In fact, I think in the flyer it does say it's not an emergency, and there's no boil water order. It's just the chemistry of the water, and based upon our age, organics, and we have a way to, in my opinion, there was probably a way to correct it prior to switching out the media back in 2010 or 2009, whatever it was, which in essence kind of was more detrimental to the plant. I think now with the technology that we have and the options out there, I think we can do that TOC, the organic removal prior to the filtration.
It's
much more effective.
More of a sediment issue than a E. coli bacteria issue is what we're.
Yeah, it's coloration. I mean, a lot of it is if your water's colored, I mean, iron or manganese can color your water, but it's also evident of some organics in the water. And I think Idlewood 1 and 2 being the worst, we are seeing signs of increased TOCs. And those are those 2 wells are our main producing wells, which is somewhat challenging to plan for.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, but I respectfully request, could we ask Tim to stay and go out of order and ask Phil Tocci to come next on the agenda so that we can talk about the installation, since the packet I have tonight says it looks like that his office will be installing the gift.
Could you run that by me one more time?
There's a
You want to jump?
baseball
jump on Phil
diamond
Tocci.
scoreboard.
Okay.
There's a scoreboard
We want
coming up.
Tim to be here for that discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
He should be
Now
here.
I'm on the same
I
page.
think
Okay.
Tim's planning to be here for the Town Hall Building Committee
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah,
anyway.
Anyway, all right, so you're not going
Tim's
anywhere.
stuck with
Do
us
it,
whether he
Phil.
likes it or not tonight.
Perfect.
Yeah, but I just appreciate, I know this is my first public announcement and public notice. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Ask my wife. I do, even though I'm not a resident here, I do take it to heart. And I have kids, and I know it's concerning for the residents, and I want to make sure that people are aware that we're moving forward. And I feel like we're in a pretty good place, considering when I first started here a couple years ago. I've talked to Dave. I think he would concur with that we're moving forward, and we feel very confident we can treat this water effectively and reduce these levels in the future.
And to Tim's point there, I went out Thursday to meet with Tim at the plant just to talk about the new building and stuff like that and see the plant. And Jeff, you and I had gone out there, was it last year, the year before? You won that? When we went out?
No, I don't think I was with you.
Weren't there? We had walked the plant and looked at the condition of everything and all the improvements we've done so far. It's night and day out there at the plant. The new software, everything is painted and kind of shiny and new and updated. It's really come a long way, so the improvements are very clear out there. And this is kind of the last piece of the puzzle. We knew we were going to have maybe some issue with the organics after this switch, because we kind of were filtering one thing and now we're back to trying to battle another thing. But I think this is on the up and up. You know, the plant was never quite designed correctly for what we need it for, and we're kind of dealing with that. But I think this is a step in the right direction with the pretreatment, and hopefully town meeting will pass it.
Yep. Thank you.
And just while you're up here, speaking of this, Article 218 is the article for this one on the warrant. And you and I had talked earlier today about who's kind of presenting it.
Right.
I think Nick Tennyson is making the motion, and I think in the script we have Tim as kind of discussion person, and I'm fine with saying a summary there instead of Tim, and if there's any questions, more kind of technical, Tim can answer them, if everyone's okay with that. Tim just wasn't sure. He didn't want to, he felt a little awkward promoting his own projects, so.
Yeah, this was a request, the FinCom is okay with making the motion, but they don't feel that they're versed well enough in the project to actually do the discussion.
So if everybody's fine with that, I'll step in on the discussion part of it, and then if there's questions, I'll defer to Tim.
You want to do that on 217 as well? That's the
Of the water.
reallocation of the previous.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we'll add you in there for both.
All right, you're off the hook for a minute, Tim, unless anybody has any other immediate questions for him. All right, thank you, Tim. All right, so let's do the consent really quick, Allison. I know you're probably going to put a hold on one of them. We'll do that, and then we'll move on to Phil.
Get some issues. Some stuff yourself. The two registrars are filling vacant vacancies that were left when people resigned.
Okay.
And she already has the third herself as a former. And the poll workers are two people that approached her, and she's always looking for extra people. You could appoint them to July 31st because they reappoint everybody on August 1st. For a year.
Okay. All right, so we can ask that when we get the discussion of the cap. All right, so we'll do the consent agenda real quick here. On the consent agenda, we have approved minutes from the Board of Selectmen regular meeting on March 4th, 2019. And then we have a handful of capital committee appointments. We have Bill Wilson for a 2-year term, Jack Lawrence, who I see tonight, for a 1-year term, Robert Woodbury for a 3-year term, and Dave Thompson for a 2-year term. And then we have poll worker appointments with term ending July 31st, 2019, Christine Ellis, Ann Fury. And then we have registrar's appointment with term ending March 31st of 2022, Bethany E. Johnson and Annika McKenna. So I'll entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, and then discussion.
So
Allison.
unfortunately, I misread how the new emails are coming across. I have not read the March 4th meeting minutes as of yet. I want to thank everyone for coming forward on the capital committee. I think they're great candidates. And I'd like to, so for the poll workers, I believe one of them is misspelled. Ann Fury's name is not spelled that way. And in order to make the appointment, we would need to know what enrolled parties they're in.
Okay.
And,
Is it in the packet?
Tom Ellsbury is chairman of the Democratic Town Committee. And
so the old one were, and the old, who, are we replacing here, or are these new people?
replacing, there were 2 resignations, according to the text I just got from the town clerk. These are people replacing people.
For poll workers? We're talking
The
poll workers.
poll workers are new people. The poll workers are new people. They approached the town clerk about being able to work polls. She's always looking for additional people because sometimes people call in sick or things happen, and so she was asking to have them included as poll workers so that she could.
So kind of the more the merrier in case someone's not available.
So it says if you appoint a poll worker, I believe, you appoint them for 1 year beginning in September of their appointment.
So what she said to me in the text was that they appoint annually in August, so that's why she's asking for them to be appointed to July 31st so that they'd be renewed with everybody on August. In August.
Well,
But when I read the Mass General Law, it specifically says your first appointment is for 1 year in September. Now, I'm not an attorney, but that's specifically what the section of the law states.
So I guess to your point, and my question of your point is, we wouldn't appoint them until September?
That's how I'm reading the law. That's when you would appoint all new appointees to be a poll worker.
If you need more.
And so what if you have
Short ones.
what if you're short or you have
Well, then
vacancies?
you have a different procedure for filling vacancies. That's why I asked, what are we doing?
Okay, so these are additional.
And then my next is, for any vacancy that we have, any job, any committee, we post and ask for people to apply. I don't remember ever doing that for these.
And was a poll worker an annual appointment?
I don't know that it is.
The annual, according to the town clerk's text, it would be annual, but she was trying to get them all on the same schedule. That was why she was
Gotcha.
asking to get through July 31st of 2019, and then August.
So when you
everybody
do
could
appoint, and they're brand new, you do have to make sure that you have equal allotments of each party. So if these are both Democrats, if you're throwing the balance off of Democrats versus Republicans,
Versus independents. Okay.
you can't do that. So all I'm asking is, if we're being asked to appoint, I think we need to know what we're doing. And I don't know that we do.
Okay.
But it's supposed to be, it's very important that elected poll workers or election workers have equal representation in the parties.
Okay. So then questions that we would need answered to satisfy you and probably the rest of
Well,
us
so
would be,
to-
are these additional people? And we should probably appoint them in September. And their party affiliations for the balance of that group
What's
of
her
holders.
what's her balance gonna be
Okay.
for the town? But for me, I should have said in my reports, I want to thank everyone. I've been a selectman, and tonight is my very last meeting appropriately on April Fool's Day. But I do want to thank everyone, but I do think when the appointments come up, we need to know what our role is, what we're supposed to be looking at, and how we're fulfilling it appropriately.
So on that note, do we hold, which ones are we going to vote on?
Yeah, okay,
Oh.
so let's say we'll put a hold on the poll workers, right?
Okay,
Okay,
so
and
now for
then
the
next-
registrars.
Registrars, okay.
Registrars, I don't know
Terms are.
why we're looking at this now, because my understanding is one person resigned and moved out of town in May of last year. But I know I asked last week who the registrars were for the town, and then this showed up on the agenda, that we're appointing registrars. But one of the registrars that is leaving office left in May. So you have 4 registrars. One can be the town clerk with no political designation. That leaves you with 3. So 2 are going to be Democrats, or 2 are going to be Republicans, and one or the other. But you cannot have 3 of the same. So if you're telling me Bethany and Anika are Democrats, who is the 3rd, and what is their political party that we're not replacing?
So who's the current person on the board?
I'm assuming there's a current. I don't know that,
Right,
because I asked who they were, and it's unknown,
okay.
and it's not on our website. And it says that typically what would happen is the political party,
It's,
at a quorum of the political party, according to the Mass law, a quorum of the political party would nominate and tell you who they would want as your registrar, not a letter from the clerk telling you who. Well, I'm just,
maybe I can help a little bit. Let me find if, I got an email that was from Tom Lonsby recommending, I think,
so I haven't seen it.
Bethany.
Well, that's, I haven't
Okay,
seen
I didn't
any
see
of
it.
it.
It's not in
yeah.
our packet. Let me just see if I can find it.
So it says, the law says each appointment shall be made by the town of selectmen from a list submitted by them by the town committee by the political party from the members of which the position is to be filled, containing the names of 3 enrolled members of such party, blah, 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 blah. So none of this seems to be fulfilling anything. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know if our attorneys have reviewed this and said that we're making good decisions, but it doesn't appear to me that we can move forward with these as written. And it's extremely important that your registrars are not all from one political party. The next part of that for the registrars is I also question, I did learn in the last week that the registrars are actually in charge of certifying the list to the states for your census, for your Chapter 70, for voting, jury duty, etc. And they're responsible for any errors within that data. So I wonder if the 2 people being appointed and the current, if there is a current member of the registrars, are aware that the numbers are still grossly inflated from the last time that I read a report. Just looking at Gordon Conwell, the number of addresses at Gordon went from over 6,000 to now over 1,800, but given we have only approved less than 400 addresses up there, I would say that that's inflated. So we're asking these people to be appointed certifying to this data. And I would hope that they're aware of what's going on before they took off that office.
All right, I have an email that I got.
I will also say that anything on your phone
Yep.
is subject to open meeting law.
I'm aware of that. I'm not
Okay.
trying to hide anything.
No, I'm not saying you, I'm not saying you are, but I
I'm-
don't know if the clerk's aware of that. So if anyone wants to be present to the meeting, I would more than welcome them. But we don't typically dialogue that way to find out what's happening.
No, but that's okay. I got a copy of the email from Annabella. Vacancy on the Board of Registrars has occurred. I've spoken with Tom Lonsby. Is that in the packet?
Yeah, they're in the packet,
Yep.
for both Annika and Bethany.
I mean, I think the poll workers, I don't think she necessarily needs right now. I mean, she could always use the extra help. But I think the registrar, since we've got the opening, we need the registrars.
We didn't have them for the biggest vote we had this fall.
Wasn't it in May that the opening was?
So May of 2018, and we had the,
Oh, I thought
not
it
the
was-
town election, we had the state elections in the fall
All right.
without registrars.
All right, so let's unfortunately table it. And maybe, if there is a need for it, maybe,
I'll let you know by tomorrow.
yeah, let me know tomorrow, and then maybe we'll do it just maybe if we really need it, we can do a brief
Meeting Saturday.
10-minute meeting before our town meeting on Saturday.
That leaves just the Capcom and the.
All right, so
minutes.
our current consent agenda that has been seconded would just include the capital committee appointments. And Allison, you said you want to see the minutes from the 4th still? So we'll table that as well. All right, so then,
Make a motion that we
Yeah,
approve the
perfect.
capital committee appointments. Bill Wilson, Jack Lawrence, Robert Woodbury, and David Thompson.
second, anyone?
Second.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Appreciate you volunteering to be on the committee. It's a very important one.
I appreciate it.
Joe appreciates it. We all do. We all truly do, for real.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, come right up to the mic, Jack.
Not on that, on the previous subject. Jack Lawrence, 105 Rock Maple. I'm just curious, I think the biggest political grouping in the state these days is neither Democrat nor Republican, but rather unenrolled. How are we represented in this scheme of things?
So I don't think the law has caught up with that.
Is that
From what
right?
I'm reading in the law, it's Democrat versus Republican.
What it says is the two leading political parties.
Oh, okay.
That's what it says, two leading, it doesn't say Democrat, it says two leading
So if
Republicans.
it's two leading,
Yeah.
we shouldn't have two Democrats and one Republican.
You can't have more than two, but of any one kind, but you only have to represent two parties, you don't have to represent three parties.
Right, but do we have to, if we have to represent the two leading,
Right.
and Democrats and Republican are not the two leading,
All right, then we need to
then we shouldn't be voting in Democrats.
Correct.
I'm just saying.
I think they're not counting the unenrolled. They're just.
Yeah.
Certainly not giving a voice to the unenrolled because the system even requires you to get lists from the parties, and there's no party to represent the unenrolled, so who would you get the list from?
I don't know, again, not an attorney by any means. I just want to make sure that when we make appointments, we're doing what we're supposed to do.
All right.
I'll try to get answers to all your questions, and we may have to meet briefly before town meeting on Saturday.
All right. Back to our agenda, or I should say, start of our agenda here. Phil Touch, I see in the back. Come on up, Phil. Welcome. He's here to present and request permission for the Boosters to donate a scoreboard for the large baseball diamond at Patton Park. Welcome, Phil.
Well, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Good to be seen. Everyone has a handout, I hope. Pretty straightforward. We were fortunate enough to receive as a gift the electronic scoreboard. It is a used scoreboard. The dimensions, as you see on the handout, are listed there, 110 inches by 44. It is electric light bulb illumination, so it will require a power source. It does have remote control features, so it can be operated by qualified staff in the dugout or from the announcer's table. So our proposal is to gift this over to the town with the maintenance and the upkeep to be borne by the Boosters and or its volunteer group.
Perfect.
You know how that goes. So it's pretty straightforward. To Allison's point earlier, this is not correctly worded. We are going to provide volunteers that the town approves of to make sure that they're properly bonded and insured. That's what we meant when we said that. So we already have volunteers lined up, but when we get to that point of installation, we'll work with town, make sure that they have the proper bonding and insurance, et cetera. The location of the scoreboard was a little bit of a fun measure. You can see on the map, the Google Earth map that I provided, the safest part that we saw would be right outside the right field foul pole fence area. So about 15 feet off of the bathroom snack shack building. That's where the power source is. So right there at the end of that yellow line where the blue fence starts, it'll be right behind that outfield fence. So it's in foul territory. If we were to put it in the right field foul area, a ball player could be running for a fly ball and whack himself into it or herself into it, so we don't want that to happen. So that's our most logical location, and it's also on town property versus any of the schooling field property, et cetera.
Excuse me, Phil, just real quick, just in case anybody's not following along, there are two small X's just below the house if you're looking at it from this vantage point, but they're hard.
So it's right here.
Right by the snack shack.
Okay.
But outside of the field of play, so.
We don't have color, so when you were talking in color, we're looking at grayscale.
I have copy color.
No, it's fine.
That's all right.
As long as we know where the X's are, we're good.
Get rid of this one.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
No, honestly, I'm fine. So I think it's great. My only question is, to be the fly in the ointment again, because it's 110 by 44, does it need ZBA? I would think it does, considering the sign we're putting in front of the Council on Aging is significantly smaller and had to go through ZBA.
Do you know, Phil, when they did the scoreboards at Cheeseman?
It was planning board, from what I understand, in the town of Wenham. It was the planning board, and we were prepared.
That could vary town to town.
Right.
We have a really different authority that way.
We're basically deferring to you guys for, what we're really looking for is your endorsement. The rec committee gave us 100% unanimous. We're looking for that from you, and then we would just go to the next review board from there.
Yeah, but I think it's great. It's being refurbished, all that kind of stuff?
It's ready to go.
Okay, perfect.
So.
Yeah, and I would just check with Sean and Joe on the ZBA regs for what we have. And
wherever we have to go next, just let us know.
I'll double check with Patrick Reffett, but I'm pretty sure that Allison's right. I think you're going to have to go to the ZBA to
just
get the
approval of the square footage
of the sign. It's actually two meetings because the planning board has to do site plan review of the sign. Yep. They have that, but the special permit granting authority to actually install the sign is with the ZBA in this town. So you have to kind of do the dog and pony show between two. The planning board was, very gracious when the town went before them regarding the public safety sign, so hopefully you'll get the same reception, and then it's on to the ZBA.
Did that with the lighting, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, it's not your first rodeo here.
No, I'm pretty good at it.
with town meeting, we've got another ask for the bathrooms here in the snack shack. Have you thought, forward-thinking, anything, will that interfere with anything that's going on there?
My conversations with Sean Timmons indicated that all intent purposes, it's not going to interfere. If anything, it would be still behind it.
Right.
They're looking to put it behind the backstop, I guess. But that's, you know, I don't know. I don't think it will. I think
Neither here nor there.
we'll be
Gotcha.
separate from it. And we're just looking at 2 concrete pilings with
Right.
the electronic scoreboard up above.
Interesting.
All right.
And the height should be relative to the existing roof heights that you have there on the shed.
Any other questions for him?
So can I see your color copy for 1 second?
Right here.
I'm just trying to,
This is the whole sign, too. There's nothing above it, right? There's no other words on it? Okay.
I'm just looking, what side are you putting it on? Where are you putting it?
So right here, 2 X's.
Oh, right there. See, I was thinking it was right there in my black and white. See,
Okay,
okay,
and it's-
perfect. That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
For this
okay.
field.
You're
Right.
fine.
And it's going to be
Perfect.
facing the schooling fields, the score as well.
Yeah.
Which is where most of the crowd would be if they were
Right.
watching the game that.
Exactly.
And it's just a baseball scoreboard. I mean, it's,
They've done
Can't-
great, though.
can't be used for
The Little League
multi-sport or
program
anything.
in
Yeah.
Hamilton has done, and the Major League, phenomenal.
yeah, thank you.
So I make a motion that we approve the donation from the Hamilton Little League
Boosters.
Brewster's Club with the stipulation that they get the required permitting throughout the town.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Thanks for coming out, Phil.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for everything you did, Allison.
Thanks.
All right, up next, we've got overview and feedback from Town Hall Building Committee presentation. We've got Mike here tonight. Come on up, Mike. Welcome.
Let's see, got a lot of territory to cover in a short period of time here, so I'll be as brief as I possibly can. Our selectmen's charge was to develop alternatives for the repair and remodeling of the town hall. And that's what we've been trying to live by. To meet the mass laws for larger projects, on August 22nd, 2018, we hired Design Techniques of Newburyport as our owner's project manager. Their role initially is to assist in the procurement of an architect for this project. On November 7th, 2018, we selected and hired LLB Architects of Pawtucket, Rhode Island, for the conceptual design. In addition to providing 8 different concepts in record time, they use their consultants for testing the structural, mechanical, electrical conditions, test borings, hazardous materials, testing for asbestos, radon, lead. Did a thorough job, very short period of time, and they were great. Our biggest concern being structural integrity for the building, and it appears to be favorable for what we're doing. There were no major deficiencies in the structure found at this time. Soils testing supports for spread footings, eliminating the need for piles or costly soil replacement or compaction. So that was very favorable to be able to put spread footings if we do something in addition to the structure that's there now. Let's see. There's so much information, I have to have it all written down, so. The radon testing was below normal levels. Asbestos was limited to some caulking on the outside, very small areas. Lead was found throughout the building. It appears that most of the paint has lead in it, but it's mostly confined to trim and doors. There was no exterior lead was found in the building or on the previous scraping projects that went on over in Topsfield. They actually scraped the building, it fell down on the ground, they left it there, contaminated soil. So we're lucky that way. We haven't had a lot of hazardous issues to deal with. Throughout each phase, mechanical upgrades, electrical upgrades, fire suppression, handicapped egress, accessible spaces throughout, good public access for the high traffic departments, future spaces in some areas, enclosed offices, small departments, committee meeting spaces, and regular selectmen meetings rooms have all been incorporated. Also taking place at the same time was a programming exercise where they evaluate the needs of each requirement, each department. That was all done at the same time, so there's a lot going on in a short period of time. I can get into the weeds here, but I'll do the brief version. We have 8 options, and I'd like to give you a quick synopsis here. It'll be brief, I promise. Let's see. The first option was a 3,000 square foot addition, 2-story, moves the DPW offices out into another building. And it was a 123-person meeting room on the second floor. This would be in the Great Hall. The second option was a 6,000 square foot addition on the back, 175-person meeting room on the second floor, but the DPW comes back inside. The next one is, let's see, the first and second one. The second addition is twice the size of the first. The third is a 17,000 square foot addition with a 175-person meeting room on the second floor. Again, DPW is now part of the, inside the building. Number 4, there was no addition, but uses the basement for a 45-person meeting space with all offices in the Great Hall and 1 small conference room for 14 people on the second floor. And then we were told that keep the offices out of the basement if possible. That more or less eliminated that option. The next one, option 5, was no addition but uses the basement for office space. Sorry. Number 6 was an 1,800 square foot addition and a 78-person meeting room on the second floor. All of these have a lot of unique pieces to them, but this is just a 10,000 foot look. The 7th option was to build a structural 3rd floor. So we'd have to come from the basement up with structural columns and build a 3rd floor. And that would house offices. There'd be a stair and an elevator. The issue with this, to be able to get the elevator up, there's an overrun required. So we'd actually have to push up through the roof, and it would be visible from the front. Now we have the Historical Commission to deal with. Probably not a great option, but there's a lot of merit to having a 3rd floor. The 8th one, which we keyed on, is no addition, but takes out the double staircase, the ornamental staircase that everybody loves. It's a 78-person conference room on the second floor, and where that stairwell is, there would be offices infill there. Number 8, being the most cost-effective option, includes removing the stairs, and one that we chose to explore further with pricing. We've had the architects several passes at that with different little variations in it. It's tight. It requires the paperless initiative. With limited office storage, storage in the offices, but the basement will be earmarked for storage and DPW use, possibly also a new accessible vault. We did look at making sure that the area in the back of the building is accessible for future building if we wanted to, if we keep everything within the structure at this point, and then at a later date, if you had to go out the back, we're going to keep a space that we could connect to it and make it accessible. Going forward, we'd like input from the Hamilton citizens, the town hall staff, the selectmen, and any professionals in town that would love to look at the drawings and give us input. It's very important. All 8 options, in my mind, they're still on the table, and we're probably going to end up with a hybrid of some group of them for the perfect project. Our timing, our plans are to get input and solidify one design and move into the schematic phase. We've gone through the conceptual phase now, but hopefully if we get approved this spring, we'll be able to do the schematic and design development phases over the spring and summer. Then in the fall, look for funding to go forward with the bidding phase. We hope to have a well-vetted design with updated pricing. What we'd like to do is propose getting funding in the fall meeting for the construction and bidding phase, and then be ready for spring 2020 with hard bidding, a completed design, and funding and approval to go forward. We could move staff to off-site locations as early as June, I believe, 2020, starting groundbreaking July 2020 with a completion of 16 to 18 months, depending on the option. Any questions?
You've been busy.
It's been a busy couple of months. Jeff can attest to that.
Just looking through all the options, I mean, like you said, there's going to be some probably hybrid of a couple of these that are going to be best for us. But I mean, I really really want to thank the committee and everyone really diving into it and getting to this point so far. It's great. It's been a long time coming, I feel. Any questions for Mike or comments on what you just kind of told us?
No, it sounds good development. Looking forward to seeing all the plans.
What we really need is input.
Right.
We have so many options on the table. We've keyed on number 8, which is the most cost-effective and
right.
probably the least dollar amount, but it doesn't take care of all the issues, most of them. But we do need input on removing the stairs, how big the Great Hall will be, the view from the Great Hall. There will be some uses for the basement, but not a lot of uses. We have money in there to do something with moisture control in the basement. We think the walls are good, it's the floor is the biggest issue, and also the HVAC will take care of some of that.
Right.
You know, I think the committee's done an outstanding job and really kept the brakes in terms of spending and being realistic about what the town can absorb. I think, as Mike said, the conundrum the committee has now is dependent upon feedback from the community, which they've had one public hearing, and hopefully we'll hear more over the next week in a town meeting. But how committed are people, or how much do they care about this staircase that we're talking about?
Right.
And for those of you who haven't been in the building, take a peek if you'd like to. But the way the building was designed, it's been used for a variety of different purposes over the years. Now it's a town hall. It was a school, library,
Jail.
a variety of different things, jail. So the staircase played an important part, an important role at a certain point in the history of this building. We just don't know how much of a role it plays in
the future of
people's
it,
lives
right.
today and in the future. And same goes with, as you mentioned, Mike, the Great Hall upstairs. Again, for those of you who haven't been up there, it's almost like a rotunda-type domed room that was used as kind of a theater. And now it's filled with cubicles for office space. And so that space would be rejiggered where you'd still get the same feel of the dome, or the rotunda, if that's what you want to call it, from the meeting room. But part of it would be still remain as office space, but more private office space with ceilings above it. So that's what we really are hoping to hear quickly.
And
Decisively over the next few weeks.
I know you talk with a lot of staff and departments about kind of the space they had and the space they would like and the space they need. Have they had a chance to weigh in on these 8 options yet?
No, they haven't. Initially, they were consulted, and there was block loading done just to see what was required. Things like some of the department heads have small conference rooms or meeting areas. Some of the offices won't change in size, and there's even an instance where they may even get smaller, but this all really keys on the paperless initiative. It has to happen.
Right.
If we're to keep the paper and keep storing and keep adding to it,
We just don't have the space.
we have to change our whole philosophy on how we're going to redo this town hall.
But the mass laws haven't caught up with your paper-free initiative. So I agree with you, and I think we could scan a ton, and I would love us to go paper-free, but I don't know that we can under the current general laws.
I think there are some things that you're right, they will have to stay as original copies, but I think there's a large percentage of paper that can be digitized. And even if it was, if you had to keep a paper copy, you could send it off-site and store it much cheaper some other way. But the paperless part of it, there's a whole software issue with it, and it's a change, it's a paradigm shift they call it, just a whole different way of looking at how you do things.
Oh, no, I love it. I mean, right now, if you do a notice of intent, I think for Concom, not to pick on them, they give a copy of the document this thick to every office upstairs. So every office has this thick document. I mean, even if we viewed things differently and said, can we no longer give every department within 5 feet of us that document, you would reduce a significant amount. Yeah, you'd reduce a significant amount.
Stuff, yeah.
I love the plans. I think you've done a huge amount of work. the floor plans look a little bit too broken up to me, so that each office is, again, it appears as though, and you can only see it one-dimensionally, are working a little bit as silos. So we have very small offices. So a lot of our offices are 2 people, 1 person offices. So then if we give them all walls and doors for those 1 people offices, again, when they're on vacation or lunches, where I think if we had some of it set up, and again, it's a philosophy, it's not just designing the town hall, that say some of the admins sat in an area that was open and we cross-trained, then it wouldn't be such an issue when someone went to lunch or someone, had their vacation, which they all deserve and should be taking. But if it looks like we're blocking them off even more, and it's going to be more difficult for residents to find their way through the town hall.
We've had, in the private sector, we've done that before, collectively, put the admin staff together. And it's worked in some instances, but one of the things that came up today was someone in the building department said we fill in for the health department when they're not there or they're sick or on vacation. And how, if they're in different ends of the building, how are they going to deal with that? So we thought about it. Actually, Tim and I were kicking it around. Well, if we're paperless and everything's online, it doesn't matter where they are.
No, it's the people coming in.
I understand. That's another part of it. But there's 2 or 3 different parts of this puzzle, and we're trying to solve one at a time. But I understand what you're saying. If there was some redundancy when people come in and they see at least one face that can direct them or get them in the right place, I agree. That is a big plus. We're trying to get the heavy traffic areas down on the first floor where they're easily accessible. But being online and being paperless is a step in the right direction for people to be able to work from home, work from another off-site location, or have someone fill in and take over in that position. So we did look at it. We don't have it solved, but that is one of the solutions we came up with.
Yeah, I mean, myself, I will sit in the recreation department. I have nothing to do with the recreation department. But when they're all off at a meeting, I can help them that whole time. Instead, what would happen is the resident would come to a closed door.
Right.
And I would be sending them home to go online. I agree with you, but I want us to be looking at that as well.
Good point. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? No? Yeah? So I guess, Mike, how can we help you some more? I know you said you want some input. What's kind of the next ask of us? I think we should circle back with the employees to see what they think of the designs. And then there's us, there's town meeting, then we've got some more public forums, right, for some more input. What's the kind of next stages of where we're going with this?
Well, the next step will be town meeting, obviously, to get funded to get through to the next 2 phases for the fall meeting. We have an obligation to get out to the public, get back to you with, what we think are solutions, meet with the staff again. So we have a lot of things that need to be done ourselves, but we need the feedback. If, as simple as people coming in and there's no one in this one-person office, what do you do?
Right.
It's as ground level as that. Right. It's just as basic as that. So we need that type of feedback.
I think, too, it would be great if, and we can't tonight, but to define how many seats do you need in the great room meeting space? Do we need 100? Do we need 150? Or do we need the 74 or whatever you're proposing? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I think that's a great question. The stairwell, I think, is a key question, because that, I think, will help you to move forward a great deal.
Mike, do you remember in option 8 how many seats there were in the large meeting room?
78, something like that. 78, was it?
78.
Yeah.
So this, I was just I think we're 40.
Yeah, it's about double this.
It's about double, right?
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, the room isn't much bigger,
Yep.
but it's configured different, and the exits and entrances are different, so it makes a big difference in the amount of people you can put in the room. One of the things they did was they had the Selectmen's chairs set up with no desk in front of them. So I didn't think that was going to go over too well. So we've inserted the desk across with the Selectmen chairs behind it, and we've done the loading going back. It's not a huge room. It's actually probably higher than it is wider, but what we'll probably have to do at some point is actually go up in that second floor and tape it off and to see exactly what's going on, so you can get a real good feel for the size of that room. If we were really to, if money was no object, we would go out the back and we'd put an elevator shaft and a stairwell, and the handicapped toilet room is right next to it. And it would probably be the most efficient way to build it, and then reconfigure the inside of the building here. But for every square foot that you add, there's a cost.
Right.
And that cost is huge, and it goes up
big cost.
very, very quickly.
Well, it's also, if you do build out back, where is anyone parking when they come to visit this building?
Well, I have the guy that can explain some of that right here.
Tim Olson, DPW Director. We've looked at the impacts to the DPW yard, and no, I haven't discussed them in any depth with the guys back there, but there are ways to reconfigure the lot back there to increase parking for Town Hall. It's probably going to include some realignment of the fence line, and some in the rear, probably taking up some trees, grubbing, and opening up some space in the back to accommodate some of the other e-waste drop-off days and things like that. But one of the things that they are looking at is, if we do impact the yard in any way, they're looking to make sure that our deliveries, our assault trucks, things like that can come in, and we don't really change much of that operation besides just taking up some space for some parking of cars during the overflow and larger events.
So fueling station would stay the same?
So a fueling station would have to be relocated, and we've looked at that as part of this project. Depending on how much impact is in the rear, we would relocate that properly, and then the least amount of or the best place possible for our guys. Right now, it's presently right inside the fence line. I'm not sure if it would just follow suit and go back if the fence line is relocated, but that's something we look at, is the new location, and obviously potentially with a cell tower as well. So we've also looked at the septic field and how to accommodate the larger groupings. It seems like the existing septic field in its current location, which is outside the side door here, there is enough room conceptually at this point, but there is enough room from the survey to what we have on record that we could add a few more rows of infiltrators and accommodate the additional flow, so without having to relocate it in the back.
That was my next question. Fuel tank. Yeah, come on up, Duke.
Can you put a second story on the building out back for office space for you people and free up the room and all that room?
So Duke has a good question. We looked at it very, very quickly. I mean, if we're going to redo that building, then we're going to pretty much be redoing two buildings. I think if I looked at that as an option, just me personally, how it would be out there for DPW to be with the crew. It has happened. Several other towns have that as kind of a standard now, moving out of the town hall and moving closer to the crew. It's something that I considered, but I think least cost effective or least cost approach would be to keep us here. Seems like that's going over better with the committee, is keeping DPW in-house in the same building, and I think least cost alternative would be to try to house us in this existing footprint.
I think it responds better to residents as well. So they're going to one location. They're not coming in here and saying, oh, no, You go back there.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
quick
go
question?
ahead.
Just, I want to, it's more of a statement than a question. Let me know when you need from us as far as getting a hold of the town department staff. I know you said you wanted input from them. If you want to organize an event where you have the architects come in and some members of your committee come in and ask them questions, we could schedule them throughout the day to have times come down and talk to you, or work it out some way to make sure you have access to them in a way that you'll get the information you need from the staff as well. But-
Yeah, we appreciate that, because we need to get past Saturday first.
No,
Right.
And we have.
I haven't offered it before now.
Well, we have to brainstorm how we're going to meet all the requirements that you've set. And one other thing, Tim has been invaluable through this whole process with interacting with the people in here, in the town hall itself and the staff. So he's been a great resource. So I appreciate all the work he did.
So what's the plan for Saturday? What are we going to present at town meeting?
That was my next question. So we're obviously voting on something at town meeting. Do you guys have presentation prep slides, et cetera, brief narrative?
We do have, Mike is going to do the presentation at this article, and he's going to give a slideshow, which I believe you are close to being put together.
You're going to hear a lot of the same things Saturday.
It's a lot of the same, but just reiterating some of these key points of what the committee's done to this point, any type of constraints that we had on, and why we decided to go with option 8 at this time. Obviously, soliciting for any other comments or ideas. We are a committee that is trying to make the best choice for the town, and I'd have to say that some of the other committee members, Mike and Jay, some of the residents that have joined have been a key piece to this as well. You know, a lot of it is the users of the building, myself, I would always love a new building, but I wanted somebody else to be able to come in and evaluate it and kind of be a third party almost. To make sure that that's the best choice for the town, and we're going down the path that everybody would gear up and join on with. So,
Yeah, the key is getting everybody vested in it, right? So I think you guys are doing a
we'll
good
make
job
sure
of
that people digest it, give them time to digest it, as well as offer them time to come in. And we had a public presentation last week. It was attended by a few. Hopefully, as this gets closer, we can gain more interest. Put out some things on social media, and we're looking to put the presentation on social media as well. And but hopefully we can get some more involvement with some ideas. Like I said, we want to be clear and transparent through town meetings, through public presentations, through committee. We meet Wednesdays. I think we've been meeting every other week at this point, or it seems like weekly almost to this point. But we want to get some more public involvement and assistance with this project to make it a special place for everybody to do business and to work.
Does the rug stay?
What's that? Rug?
I said, does the rug
The
stay?
carpet squares stay upstairs.
Mike, if you could have that presentation to us sooner than later. I know Annabelle's going to start to put together the PowerPoints for
Right.
Mr. Mielek. He was
Yeah, I was just gonna
hoping
mention.
to have them before Thursday. I know she's going to be doing that starting tomorrow, so.
Right, we have the PowerPoint all together. What we're waiting for with some of the numbers.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea, we've asked for 175,000 to date, with 75,000 CPC, and 100,000 was town funds, and that's what got us to this point. We still have money left over, about 60,000 left over, so we're under budget there. At the spring meeting, this meeting coming up, we're going to be asking for $75,000 worth of town funds, and the CPC has, I guess, granted us 150 if that also passed the town meeting. So this will get us 2/3 of the way through the, maybe halfway through the design, 2/3 of the way possibly, and then there'll be another ask in the fall. And then spring.
Yeah, this will get us through design development, which will give a very good, once you get into schematic, that's where the project really comes together.
Right, this will
with
get
the
us a more
choice.
robust design, not buildable documents, but we'll get
Right.
closer to.
Schematic will be probably around, when it's all said and done, the final schematic will be probably around 30% of the design. Design development would follow probably closer to 60 to 70%, something like that.
Yeah.
With the next steps to be funded at a later time at Fall Town meeting to go to the final final design and bid set.
Okay. And I would make sure you kind of include that time frame when we talk on Saturday again.
Right.
Just so everyone knows the kind of larger picture of, if you don't already have that in there. I'd
Well,
add
we
that.
had it here, and we were waiting for you to ask us, so we're all
Good,
set.
good, Ed,
We're ready
good,
for you.
Good, good. Anticipating it, good. Mr. Johnson, did you want to say something?
Just quickly, Mark Johnson, Patton Drive. The presentation that they gave at the Senior Center was great. People asked some great questions. They were able to put some numbers on the boundaries. I highly recommend that they go on the road. You know, Jeff and Mike were great at addressing everything. So, you know, between now and whenever we have to do in the fall, you know, get you guys in front. Those are great. Very specifically about the CPC, I did not do my homework on the CPC, but in the past, they haven't liked a lot of design work on things that are not actually historic preservation. You know, for example, replacing new windows instead of historic windows, like the new windows just aren't historic. So I think I think sometime between now and Saturday, it'd be nice to get some clarification so that on Saturday you guys are ready to say, nope, this passes CPC and it addresses it, because it is in the background. So just clarify that this is a valid expense of CPC money.
Good point.
We will consult with Jay on that.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. He'd be the good source for it. Any other questions? I know, Scott, you're just walking into it, but...
Nope. Imagine you covered it all.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have anything else?
When will we have an opportunity to talk about funding, big picture?
So I was kind of thinking that after Saturday, we'll kind of see what happens, and then we'll talk more like the bonding, general fund, CPC, all that kind of stuff. I kind of want to get through that hurdle of Saturday, but I do agree with you, that kind of larger picture of it's going to be a big number.
Right.
Where are we going to get it all from?
Right.
So I agree with you. It's definitely a conversation that we're going to definitely have to have.
Right, okay.
Anything else for these gentlemen?
Great job.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
for
Thank you, guys.
the presentation. Really appreciate it. All right, Mr. Johnson, are you ready? We got a presentation and discussion of the Patton Homestead business plan, and Joe's going to talk to it.
Yeah, that was me.
Mark, and you're just here to support Joe? Perfect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love when that happens. So I was just going to, briefly for the Board of Selectmen, for folks watching at home who didn't have a chance to join me last Thursday night. Kaylee Perret, the new patent director, and myself presented the business plan to the public in a publicly televised meeting here last Thursday night. I just want to go over some high points and then refer people to the business plan, which is posted on the town website, and take questions if you all have them. But the business plan is based on efforts over the last 6 months to identify the likely uses of the homestead. That was done through work done by the Empower Success Corps, a consultant that was hired by the town and the PHI Board of Directors to check on the feasibility of being able to use the homestead in the way it's been discussed, as well as in partnership with the Wenham Museum. The business plan outlines a multi-pronged approach for activating the homestead property for a mix of public and private uses, with the private uses generating revenue that would go back to the Patton Homestead Fund to assist with their operational costs. The business plan seeks to grow the revenue-generating activities of the homestead over a course of several years, with the goal of being able to operate the property without assistance of town general fund revenues in 3 to 4 years. The plan features 4 decision points in August, November, January, and March, at which time the town can assess our performance to projections. In other words, we projected X amount of revenue, X number of events at this type and that type. We'll see where we are at all those key points. And it offers us the opportunity to make course corrections as needed to try to make sure we get to our goals. The first year, I have to correct this before I put this online, but the first year goal for revenue in keeping with the FY 2020 budget that was developed for the property was to earn $30,000 in event revenue at the site. At this point, we do believe that's an unattainable goal. Event revenue can be generated from a variety of event types that allow us to charge private guests for events such as weddings and reunions, as well as vendor-driven events such as pop-up taverns in the carriage barn, or day events such as a craft beer or food truck festival, which would charge admission. Additionally, we are seeking to build out a calendar of free to the public events, including established events like Military History Day and new events like the planned Kite Flying Festival. The business plan allows for a combination of different event types to get us to the revenue projection. So, for instance, on average, a Saturday wedding might generate about $3,000, $2,800, something like that, to the town for an 8-hour event on a Saturday. Well, under that plan, in order to get the $30,000, you'd need to, book the place out 10 or 11 times. But if we do a mix of different event types, you'd be able to get to the $30,000 with only 3 or 4 weddings or 5 or 6 weddings, but you have 8 pop-up events and a couple of day events and things that charge admission. So it allows us to be flexible and respond to whatever the market is promoting or supporting. The town will be meeting shortly with the residents of Patton Ridge. They're our nearest residential neighbors, and we want to make sure that all the events contemplated in the business plan are carried out in a way that is respectful and courteous. I have actually already had contact with the homeowners association there, and we're trying to schedule that meeting right shortly after town meeting. Other parts of Thursday's presentation also outlined the efforts of the last few months, including the work done by PHI and the town's engagement with Empower Success Corps to develop the feasibility model for the business plan, our ongoing efforts to develop a sound marketing campaign, the hiring of Kaylee Perret as director. I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied tonight. I don't know what's wrong with me. Our application this year to the Massachusetts Cultural Council's Cultural Facilities Fund for a $400,000 grant to help rehab the homestead. The already growing list of events and inquiries we have had at the homestead. Kaylee's already had 2 people reach out to her to try to schedule weddings there.
Great.
Which is, we aren't even technically open for business yet, so that's great. We've had other caterers and vendors who are interested in using the stable and barn for events, either private events or partnering with us on some of our ideas like a pop-up tavern. So we're actually pretty optimistic about some of these revenue streams. The expansion of the PHI board with 3 new members, so they're now at, Mark, what is it? 6 new members. They had 4 in the fall, lost 1, and gained 3, so they're a total of 6 right now. And are growing and improving partnerships with organizations like the One Museum, obviously the PHI, the American Legion, and town departments, among others. Kaylee's been a real workhorse, and she's reached out to anybody and everybody, and if she hasn't got to you yet, she will be reaching out to you soon. She's had meetings all over the place, and she did a lot of the work on putting the business plan to paper and helping us prove it out. Finally, we pointed out that the proposed capital project for the homestead is not thought of in a way that it would impact the town general fund. The idea behind the capital project is that PHI will be launching a capital campaign shortly, and they will fundraise for the bulk of the money to do the project out there in phases, likely. If we get grants like the one from the Cultural Facilities Fund that we just applied for in January, that will help speed up some aspects of the phasing of that project. But as much as we acknowledge that the property is a town-owned resource, we also acknowledge that there are other pressing needs for the town in terms of things like the Town Hall Building Committee and improvements at the water plant. And we can't put improving the Patton Homestead ahead of those other priorities as well. So the capital campaign at the homestead will take care of the homestead, and the town's ongoing effort with the new capital committee and things will prioritize our other needs. So that's kind of what Thursday's meeting covered. I'm going to be trying to do a shortened version of that because I'm sure Mr. Mielik will hold my hands to the fire on keeping that under 3 minutes. Happy to take questions from anybody about that. The slideshow that we prepared for Thursday night is on the town website, as is the business plan itself.
All right.
And that was a lot to take in.
It was.
I'm sorry.
So is there an event book? I mean, what's the first?
Actually, Kaylee's hoping to have that prepared for, have a first run of that, a calendar of events.
Be good to show that, right?
She's going to have that on the, she's preparing that for both the page on the website and a printout of it for the slideshow at town meeting. So
either a list of potential or what's already been booked would be good to have
she's
that.
already, I think from Thursday night's event, she was able to talk about 6 or 7 events that are already booked. Right. And a number of potential things that have been discussed with people asking about, as I said, weddings and other events. So, as I said, we've only had her on board for 6 months, so, I mean, for 6 weeks. So imagine what she can do.
Feels
when
like
she has
6 months. She's done 6 months worth of work, right?
I've only been on board for 6 months. If she's only been on board for 6 weeks, so imagine what she can do if we can give her another 6 months. Jeff was there. He might have some comment about it.
Well, no, I know I represent, I think, a minority, possibly a minority view, which just essentially is a municipality getting involved with an event planning venue. Just, in my mind, doesn't make financial sense. The amount of money that we've already spent through our CPA funds on the gift, through our general funds for the gift, for the relatively few people who have been able to use it in 5 years since we've owned it. This, the goal here is in another 3 to 4 years for it to be self-sufficient. So at that point in time, it'll be 8 to 9 years where we've been funding what was originally, and with all the best of intentions, intended as a gift and a benefit to the town. I'm just not sure that using it for the municipality to get involved in an event planning function or venue is the best use of the gift.
Well, I mean, I actually respect everything you say there. I think that, it's unfortunate that the town to this point hasn't stepped up to do more out at the homestead. I think from a local resident's perspective, the gift offers us a lot of opportunities to activate access to the Ipswich River, activate more public recreation out at the homestead when it's not booked for private events. It's open to the public now. It's a public asset. People want to go out there and have a picnic on a nice day, they can. The folks that like to snowshoe and cross-country ski have been using it over the winter when we had snow. The launch dock there is there for canoes and kayaks to put in. There's a bird watching deck out into the river. There are opportunities to use the facility now. We need to do a better job of letting people know that. And we need to do a better job of, highlighting it for people, having reasons for people to go out there. I think anytime you have a public space, bigger cities often have public, an esplanade or a gathering spot. They program things for that space so that people find the value and the use of it and the enjoyment of it. We need to do that as well. And Kaylee's job is not just as an event planner booking private events, although that's a big part of what we've asked her to do because we want to make the property self-sufficient. But it's also going to be to work with Parks and Rec and the Council on Aging and groups like the Garden Club or the Community House to have other events that invite Hamilton residents and the surrounding community to enjoy the facility.
I think that we always hear open space, and so we're able, by that gift, we're able to guarantee that to be open space. On top of that being open space, we're given the opportunity to have an asset to use. So not only do we have open space, this town invests a lot of money in open space that we get no return on, with no chance of return on. This is open space we actually have an opportunity to make here. So I think we're getting best of both worlds, Jeff. We're getting open space as a gift, and then we're getting an asset on top of open space to able to make some money. So, we spend a lot of money on Sagamore and Donovan. A lot of money that we get zero return, just open space. So I think this is on top of that, yeah.
Yeah, with all due respect, it's adjacent to Willow Bend. We have a state park that has 4 entryways for canoes and kayaks to get into the water within a mile from the Patton Homestead. So just because we don't have some of these resources exactly in our town, or we're not paying for it or not responsible for it, we have it in places like Willow Bend. And that's a tremendous amount of open space. It doesn't cost us a dime. They've got the bird watching and the decks and the, like I said, the canoe and the kayak launch areas with miles and miles of trails. Again, where the Patton Homestead doesn't connect with trails, it has its area, as you talked about, Bill, its own immediate area, which sure is nice to have, and when it comes down to our property tax dollars, it's adding on to our property taxes. And is that something, as a community, that people are comfortable about? We'll find out, we find out at town meetings and people make their votes. I'm just representing the few people out there who
I think just holistically, we have to keep remembering, and you keep saying it, that the tax benefit we get from Patton Ridge it far outweighs any money we spend, and we would have not gotten that tax benefit for Patent Ridge if that gift had not been made to us. So we have to put that in the whole list. And I understand what you're saying, two different things, but that's part of the whole gift. So we have to always make sure we maintain those two thought processes.
Well, when the gift was originally proposed, Bill, when those condominiums were presented to the town, they were supposed to be reasonably priced, and they're up near $1 million now. But also, there was property tax income prior to when the Pattons owned the estate. So we had property tax income before. Once you deduct that from the property tax incomes we're getting from the condominiums, it's about $100,000. That was promised to help with our property tax rate when this whole project was sold to the community. So to say that we're using the property taxes now just to fund the Patten homestead.
We have to look at the whole picture holistically.
Yeah. It's costing money.
Mr. Johnson.
Mark Johnson, Patten Drive. I'm also on the Patten Homestead Board of Directors, just to disclose. A couple of things to correct. It's more than just open space. What Kaylee is going full bore on is to help create this as a cultural center, a cultural asset, where we'll actually be having activities. So it's not just bird watching and canoeing. It will be activities that all different segments of our society, our city will be able to, town will be able to enjoy. That aside, I do want to correct some of the things that Jeff has articulated. The homestead used to generate between $28,000 and $30,000 a year as tax revenue. Most of the time, for the history, it was well under 24. Towards the end, it was about 28,000. There was one instance where we had a larger tax bill. We're getting $146,000 a year from Patten Ridge. And if you take $30,000 off that, sort of well beyond an average, you're still talking a large number. You take off the $86,000 from this operating, you still have a very positive. Out of the $86,000 of the town's budget, $42,000, maybe $43,000 is going back to reimburse the town. So DPW director and other salaries that are part of the town. So and
because those are costs.
They're absolutely. They're real costs. And if this warrant article doesn't pass, right, we still have to pay DPW director his full salary. We still have to pay everybody. So it makes perfect sense that the budget that's given to the town, it has all of the costs of everybody, right? The Patten Homestead Transparency Special Fund and the Special Act means we have to account for everything, which means we accepted the burden, and the business plan shows that burden, and the ask at town meeting shows the burden of the full extra $42,000 of overhead that we voluntarily put in there because we're the ones who asked to be transparent, right? So we are fully loading the $86,000 that's being asked for at town meeting includes $43,000 back to the town, right? So, and if that money's elsewhere, that $42,000 is basically going to free cash, and it's the town's getting it. So, big picture is. For the last 3 years, the homestead hasn't cost the general fund almost anything because almost all of the costs to operate it for the last 3 years has been borne by the land sale proceeds of the Patten Ridge homes. So the $35,000 or so for 2, maybe 3 years was not out of the general fund at all. So while we were getting the Patten Ridge income, we were also not incurring the expenses of the homestead because that was paid for by that land sale. We're now going back into a scenario where we are hiring a director because we needed to make progress. We weren't making progress without a director. And so the director is giving us a chance to create the cultural center, fund it, and create the revenue sources to give it a chance to be break even. Right? So, and then if you add up all the revenue we've spent at the homestead to date, excluding CPC, we have that captured elsewhere, but all the general fund money in, the town is at the moment about $100,000 ahead through the fiscal 19 that we're in now will be about $175,000 ahead, and including next year will be $250,000 ahead. Now that includes the Patten Ridge revenue, which we do not want to include long term.
Right. I had to interrupt.
Please.
Sorry, but Mark, the way you're presenting it, is, I think you're misrepresenting it, because the income that we receive from the Patton Ridge condominiums, if not for it being used at the Patton Homestead, would be reducing our property tax rate. That's the trade-off.
I'll be clear. It's not going to the Patton Homestead. That Patton Ridge money is going straight into the general fund and does not pass anywhere near that Patton special fund. Absolutely.
You're saying that we're in the positive on this Patton Homestead. Where are you getting the income?
So you were positing that we have been losing money at the property. Since accepting the gift, we've lost money. Well, since we've accepted the gift, we're actually ahead, right? Because if you're accepting the gift, you're dealing with the whole 27 acres
Property,
coming
right.
in.
The gift was the whole property.
We want this discussion to be not about Patton Ridge. We want to get to the point where the discussion is entirely about whether the homestead is self-sufficient, and the business plan has that a few years out. We understand that's where we need to be. That's where we need to manage it to be. We have a director hired to help us get there. And that's where we want to focus. Right? In the meantime, we haven't been losing money. We've been spending money on CPC. Right? That's
how much on CPC? I guess my question would be how much on CPC and how much on general fund?
CPC, 92,000 for some of the repairs.
I'll just add up the allocation. 24,000 initially, 35,000 for the river walk.
Yeah.
45,000 for dormers, and 200,000 for exterior construction, which is now completed. So 240, 300,
300.
You know, so it's $300,000 or so. So that, you know, that we have it tracked. And we'll be completely transparent about it. But that's not. We're not going back to CPC. Right? We're the patent.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
And how much total have we spent from the general fund over the?
About $35,000 through 14, $31,000 in 15, $26,000 in change, maybe closer to $20,000 in 2016. The reason the numbers are estimates is because Michael never had us.
Right. We did $35,000 a year.
Roughly $35,000 for 3 years, and then nothing, because it was paid for the operations. The same $35,000 was paid for by the special fund.
And that $35,000 also doesn't include the reimbursement to the town for people like the town manager time, the DPW director time.
Unfortunately, we weren't doing very much to reimburse them for.
Well,
we would have liked to.
We were doing enough. No, we were putting in parking lots, and we were doing the renovations, these CPC projects, these 5 different CPC projects. So we were doing enough to be reimbursed. My point is, that's property tax dollars. It's costing a resident who lives in Hamilton money on their tax bill.
I appreciate that.
I think we need to stop because you keep twisting it, and it's not fair.
I'm not twisting
The
it.
entire gift.
I'm not twisting
Pause.
it.
Pause,
is
everybody.
The entire project.
Pause. I'm gonna bring it back full circle. Let's get back to the business plan. I appreciate both your points.
Yeah.
I'll step away.
And I thank you, Mark. And I see, you know, we've got accounting now that's really transparent. You know, we didn't have it before, the special act, now we have it. And I think that's part of the gray area, Jeff, is that we have all that stuff that it's unfortunately, it's not straight for us in the past, right? And we have spent a lot of money on carrying operating costs, reimbursing DPW, et cetera. There's definitely some costs involved. But let's continue on with talking about the business plan now. I think the business plan that Kelly put together and that Joe just presented to us, I think is a great step in the right direction. I think the more we can get the asset being used and get community members out there, people from other communities out there to use it, you know, get the right marketing behind this, really get more of a buzz going about this property, it's going to sell itself for us, I believe. I mean, I've talked to other communities, and over with the Stevens Estate, a few other communities that have different facilities but similar vein, and over the years they've made it self-sustaining and made profit on it, and it's become a part of the culture of the town. I think that's something we really have to use the Patton Homestead for. It's part of the culture of our town. It's definitely an asset. It's a very historical place. You know, when you ever mention the Patton name to people, it's got the mystique about it. I think there's going to really have people coming to use the property just because of the Patton name, and not just the opportunity to have a beautiful open space and facility, et cetera. So I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. I think all the numbers are good. I like the fact that there's all these different kind of combinations of events to add up to the numbers. I think that's good foresight.
Well, and it's helpful too, because we don't have any past use of the property in that way to be able to benchmark it. So it gives us a couple different ways to attack it, and we track what's working, and redouble our efforts there, and hopefully we get it to where it can be.
No, and I think every time we have an event out there, even the couple military history days we've had that I've been to out there, people from the community, people from other communities have come to it, and the comments that I overhear are, wow, this is amazing. Not just the military history day, which is great, but the property itself, the building, the whole provenance with the history behind the family and stuff. I think it's truly kind of word of mouth will hopefully grow about using the facility. Any other comments, Allison?
I think we keep arguing the same points, and I think we have to respect that everyone has difference of opinions. I will say, though, that I think since Joe has come on board, he's done a great job that we now do have the information where we can move forward. The plan is great. She's done a great work on it, but it is hypothetical. So I think we have the transparency, we have a director in place, we have a town manager that is supporting it and supporting the transparency and working with the staff. And now I think you're going to need, a year's worth of data or so to see if it's going to fly or not fly.
Right, we're at that kind of leap of faith point, right?
I think you are, but you've had everything. Should it have happened earlier? Absolutely. But I don't think it's the fault of anyone in this room. Everyone's been working to try to the best to their ability for the residents. You now have it aligned properly. Let's put it in front of the residents and see how it goes.
Agreed.
One thing I did forget to mention during my brief remarks there was that we have also moved the Hamilton Historical Society out to the north wing of the building. I'm excited about that because I actually think it's a more appropriate space for them. I think it offers the potential for a much higher profile for that organization. Their organization had been waning in terms of membership the last couple of years, and I think that having them out on an accessible first floor site that's kind of attractive and inviting will allow them to rebuild their membership a little bit and rebuild their profile in the community so that people understand who they are and what they're about and what they have to offer the community. So I'm happy to have them out there.
And I think, too, that the majority of our members are the seniors in our town who've done and dedicated so much time. And I feel like having in the basement, honestly, was disrespectful to them. It really was disrespectful to them. So for as much as we can get them out, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's good. All right, next topic, discussion of ATM warrant draft script. You should have it in your packet.
A copy of what you had? Can I get a copy of what you had later? Where you turn to page 12, there's some notes in red, page 7. So we got some feedback. I had shared this with the chairman of the Finance Advisory Committee last week, and he had got back to me this morning with a couple of requests. He observed that I wasn't being recognized under Article 2.4 to speak to the town manager's budget, so we've added that.
Appropriate, yeah.
we added that on, let's see. Skipping ahead to Article 212 on page, 28, Article 2.8 of the Community Preservation Budget. On page 12, the Finance and Advisory Committee is going to want to speak a little bit on this. They actually met last week, and according to the notes that Mr. Stern gave me this morning, they met last week and supported what your vote was, which was to make a change. So they had originally voted in favor of the CPCA article as presented, and they went back and mirrored your vote. So they'll want to speak at the town floor to inform the town meeting of that change after Mr. Butler makes the motion. Then on Article 212, the They've asked if Mr. Poolidge can speak to the patent homestead article. His point there, or their point there, is that they want to clarify their decision not to make a recommendation and to leave it up to town meeting. So that, from what they tell me, they just want everybody to know that that vote is not a, they are not in support of, that's just
Right, it wasn't a negative
we're
or
not making a
positive.
recommendation, so.
Right.
Then you get ahead a little bit to Article 2-17 and 2-18. These are the water department bonding articles, debt articles. And they just asked to have a little bit changed. Mr. Tenson didn't feel comfortable leading the discussion on these. So what we've, and they've actually changed since what you have here shows Tim Olson leading the discussion, but we're actually going to have the Board of Selectmen, if you are all in favor of it, have the Board of Selectmen chair frame the discussion, and then Tim will answer questions. Tim is a little hesitant to, kind of be trying to sell his own project. He wants to answer questions to help people make up their minds, but he feels it might seem self-serving if he's the one up there making the presentation. So so Sean has offered to do that for him.
And that might be it.
That might be it. That might be it. Yeah, the planning board articles, they wanted to confirm that their votes did not reflect the latest language in the actual motions, because the planning board did not finalize the language in their planning board, the Article 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, until after the warrant went to press. They had approved based on earlier information. They may want to make a different recommendation on the town meeting floor. I know your board is considered.
Yeah, so that was one of the things we were supposed to discuss today, is whether or not we make a recommendation on those three. So I was going to tell you where it's at, and then we can decide as a group what we choose to do, and it might be hard for us to choose to do anything, but at least I can give you all the information.
Yeah, go for it.
This is a good time to do it.
Yeah.
So we had 3 bylaws had language for. One was the signage bylaw. So we talked about last week is they added language for a temp sign.
Right.
Temp signs allowed for it to be up for 2 months, has to abide by all the permanent sign regulations, but if it's only up for 2 months, you don't need to go get approval for it. It's called a temp sign. What they also said before an election period, it can't be content-based. That was the whole thing, right? Don said it can't be. So before an election period, you can put 5 temporary signs in your property.
Okay.
But they can't dictate the content, so it's kind of a loophole. They could be 5 signs to sell, Christmas trees or lawnmower or something, but you're allowed to have 5 signs 2 months before an election period.
Okay.
They have to come down 10 days after the election, but they could be of any content.
Right.
Because they can't be content.
Because you can't do content.
Right, they can't just, they don't have to just be political or candidate, it could be anything, right? So they added that language, and then the other thing they added was real estate signs. Donna did agree that you could have temporary signs be real estate signs, and they could be up for the duration of the sale and be taken down within 2 weeks after the sale.
Because there's a question of whether that was content or not.
And she did spend some, that's why it took so long, she spent some time reviewing it, but the language that will be in town meeting says temporary signs or signs that are up for 2 months or signs pertaining to real estate sales, and those must come down within 15 days of the sale closing. So it seems to take care of that problem that we talked about last week about what you do with real estate signs, so.
Okay.
So there are 3 things they added, right? They added language for temporary signs for 2 months. They added 2 months before an election, you can have up to 5 signs. And they added real estate can be up for the duration of the sale and be taken down within 2 weeks after the closing.
Okay.
So.
That seems reasonable to me. I mean, we'd kind of.
And they were unanimous in their support of it. Planning board, all 7 members were unanimous in support of that. So what do we want to do with that one?
Allison, you look like you're thinking over there.
So I'm sorry, I apologize if I missed this part when I stepped out, but, so we had the appropriate hearing with the language, have we had a hearing with the language changes as of yet for the planning board?
Well, they had their meeting on.
They had their meeting on the 19th, and they voted on it, so unanimously to support it. I haven't heard anything that has been changed since then.
Okay, so this all happened before their last meeting, and they read it all into the record then, so that's their public hearing?
Right.
Okay, good to know.
The only thing they've changed since their meeting on the 19th was the order of the microcell bylaw. They didn't change the content of it, they changed the order of it, and they're gonna make a motion on town floor to adjust the So it wasn't content-based, they just, for some reason, they had something in the wrong order, and Donna changed it. She picked up a clerical error, but it wasn't content-based. But on the signage, right, the signage was that language. They added 3 things. So what happened on the 19th is they added the language on the real estate sign, and Donna agreed with that language.
Okay.
But you had sent me something about the real estate thing from another town.
Yeah.
And what Donna says is that our language says 2 months before an election, you can have 5 signs, but they can be of anything. They don't have to be just, that's how they get away with the content. That's the way she sort of found the legal way around it.
Yeah.
You can have 5 signs, but they could be for sale lawnmower, or sell, car, whatever it is, you can have 5 temporary signs up.
All right, so since we just had the sign bylaw we kind of went over, let's take them kind of one at a time here. So let's take a straw poll and see if we're in support of the change in language to the sign bylaw. Anybody agree with the change in language for the
Yeah, I'm fine with the
5 temporary signs and the political signs?
I'm opposed to this warrant article.
To the whole thing? Signage is all? Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff, any thoughts for you?
No, not this time.
Opposed, against, abstain, anything? We're just taking a straw poll.
Oh, yeah. I guess the new language is fine.
Just echo what Scott is saying. I think that our signage bylaw needs a lot of work. This is a small step. I don't think it's a bad step in the wrong direction. I'm supporting it, but I still think there's a lot more to do. But I don't think this is, in my opinion, I'm for it, because I don't think it takes away from anything, but I think it needs a lot more work.
Yeah, I agree with your statement.
Mm-hmm.
Allison, what do you
I
think?
just looked at a signage bylaw just now after, and most other towns have an exclusion. They say street signs, gravestones, scoreboards. So they exclude things that but ours is none of that. Ours has none of that stuff.
None of the definitions.
That's the next step. But I think we're trying to take care of some things now that we think we can take care of now. Whether we wait or not, I can
Right,
go
because
either
we
way.
have our current sign bylaw,
Right.
no one's really adhering to certain sections. of it,
Anyways, right. So if we don't pass it, what's what happens? It's just
Status quo.
status quo.
Well, I'm sorry, but wasn't the force behind this town council asking us to do this?
Yes, correct.
So, and there are towns, I believe, currently in Massachusetts being sued over their sound bylaws and their enforcement of them? So, in that regard.
This cleans up that. Yeah.
And she's trying to make something constitutional, I'd be in favor of fixing it in alignment with what town council's asking. It's affecting towns, the enforcement's affecting other towns.
Right.
Yeah, someone can go put up a large banner that says something rude and inappropriate, and we really can't do anything to stop it based on our current bylaw. Right, so it's hard. This makes it easier.
Right, so this is not a total fix, but it's make it more legal.
So that's why I'm fair, because I think it takes a step in the right direction.
All right.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Seems most of us support it. Okay. All right, next one.
So what are we gonna do are we gonna make any motion on town floor to either recommend or not?
Sure, I suggest we vote tonight on all these things, and then we have our
Then
positions.
we just have it all set.
That's it, and we're done. We wouldn't need a meeting Saturday morning.
Yeah, no, I'm all for
Needed all
that.
votes on all the warrant articles.
So I make a motion that we support, what is it, it's 2.1?
3.1.
3.1.
All right. Anybody second? All right. All those in favor?
But,
Do we have a little more discussion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Before we vote?
Yeah.
I said I was opposed. I'd like to give my reasons on record. I greatly admire our town council. I think she does a great job. She's well recognized in the state. So almost always listen to what she has to say. I always listen to what she has to say. The question is acting on it. I think we're overreacting to one town, one person putting a huge sign up that was offensive to somebody when we don't have a problem in our town. So I feel like we're partially doing some things that are going to make some things better, but now, in my opinion, it's more complicated. And we're over-administrating something that isn't a problem. So I prefer we get it right. And this wasn't one of the priorities of the bylaws that we had asked the planning board to work on. It wasn't part of all the money that town meeting funded to work on rewrites of the bylaws and priorities of new ones. So I don't think we should be working on it.
And I also think we're worrying about something that's not a problem in our town. We should focus on stuff we got to worry about.
Right.
So
Joe, how did this come forward?
It was.
Do you know?
I don't.
You may not know because you haven't
really
been
don't know.
here,
It was
right,
proposed
yeah.
by the planning board.
Yeah.
As I said, I do think that there's some truth in what you said as far as Donna had an issue with some aspect of the temporary sign bylaw. And I know that we had in the fall, and I don't know if it's related to this or not 100%, but there had been some complaints about temporary signs. As far as a lot of school open house signs and things like that, there are complaints of some, kind of sign pollution. And the new building inspector said it was difficult for him to enforce anything, given the way the sign bylaw read, because it was too vague, whatever, so.
It's just because it's unusual to me, for when I worked for the town in the Board of Selectmen's office, in the DPW office, and now as a selectman, it's very unusual for Donna to bring something forward unless people from the town are bringing it forward as an issue. Which leads me to believe that the planning board went to her and said, we have an issue and how do we address? I don't think she initiated this, and then after looking at it, found it wasn't constitutional, which is always a bad thing to have in your town. And I think it's going to create more of a problem. Having said all that, I think I'd be in favor of doing it for the motion, but I'd like to change the motion to say, as long as all appropriate hearings have taken place for the, as need to for the planning board, then I'm totally, I mean, she doesn't do this unless she has some, I've never seen her do it unless she has some reasoning to do it.
So then, I guess, if you want to make a new motion,
So I make a motion that we
end it.
Amend the motion to approve Article 3-1, conditional upon the planning board has taken and held all of the necessary
Public hearings.
zoning hearings.
Okay.
Second.
Any other discussion?
I'm personally not so concerned about the planning board done something correctly every time I've gone back and check anybody to see if they've been following the right steps. It's generally been there, so for that reason, I don't recommend the amendment to the motion either.
Okay. So we have,
All those in favors of the amendment? One, and then
Right, and then we
whether,
go back
and then
to
we
the
vote then we voted. It's,
Right.
it's,
all right, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye. I'm an issue with
I'm
that.
abstaining, I don't mind either way, really. So, carries it, so we've got an amended motion.
We're supposed to record for all this stuff, just so you know, so I.
So, yeah,
okay.
so Allison in favor, Bill Olson in favor, Jeff
Jeff.
Hubbard in favor, Sean Farrell abstained, Scott Mattern in opposition. All right, so back to the motion at hand, the amended motion. All those in favor?
Allison Jenkins, yay.
Yeah, aye.
Bill Olson, aye.
Jeff Hubbard, aye.
All right,
Scott, no?
and I'm going to abstain again. All right. Let's make it more complicated in the next one.
All right. What's the next one?
All right.
Next one is the.
Inclusionary housing.
So what they did with since the last change, since what I described to you, what they did is they went back and they said, okay, we were going to do 80% of the AMI.
Right.
And they said they're not going to do the 80, they're going to do the AMI. So the annual median income.
It's total AMI now.
Totally, so
Okay.
3 times, and it's around, I don't know the exact number, but it's as defined by HUD, so they made a very clear definition of what the AMI is.
Okay.
As defined by HUD for the community. It's around 100,000 right now, but it changes, it fluctuates. So they ask is, instead of being 2 times 80% AMI, it's 3 times AMI, so it's around $300,000 ask. Currently, right now, it's around $160,000 ask, so it's an increase of
It
about
would double it.
$140,000.
Just about.
In rough numbers.
That makes sense to me. Just
And
keep
they
it
were
simple.
unanimous in that ask as well, too. They said it shouldn't be a problem to get, based on what they just saw at Canterbrook,
Right, it shouldn't be
it's
an
not
issue.
going to be an issue to get
That money.
$290,000.
Because they actually got more from Canterbury, correct? Yeah.
Correct. So they thought it was an appropriate, because that's what it costs to build a unit, around 290.
Right.
3 times your salary is what it costs to build a unit. So that's kind of how they came up with the math. So they were unanimous in favor of it. The only thing that, the pro is that it gets us, the town, and
Money for an
more
affordable
money.
unit that's market rate-ish or
The,
whatever. Yeah.
the con of it is that it scares away a developer who says, oh, I don't want to develop because I have to come up with $300,000. But
Right.
they'd have to spend that money anyway, so they feel
Right.
that to build it would cost that. So it's just, it makes it more fair,
Yeah,
even playing field.
all right.
So they spent a lot of discussion on it, but they were unanimous in this decision, so I'm fine with it, because
All right, so,
we just saw it at Canterbrook, so.
all right, so I suggest you make a motion and then someone second, and then we have a little discussion if we need one.
I make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend favorable action on Article 3-2.
Second.
All right, any discussion? No, seems pretty straightforward to me. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Okay.
All right, 3-3.
The
wireless
last one
facilities.
is the self.
What is it? I'm sorry, what is it, Mary Alice?
Clarification of who the second was.
Jeff.
Oh, Jeff. The last one is the cell phone or the micro.
Towers, data, et
Tower.
cetera, yeah.
So the change, I mean, they condensed the language. I can send you the language. I can't go through it all right now. But basically what they did is they took a Worcester bylaw and another bylaw, and they combined both they focus on 2 things, location and aesthetics.
Right.
What they were missing last time we reviewed it was the aesthetic. So they've added the aesthetic. Once again, it's gone back and forth with Donna and the planning board. The language wasn't set until just this week after they voted, but the vote on content was approved. What they changed was the order of the content. I wasn't there, so I missed the discussion on why they changed the order. They're actually gonna vote in the morning or have something in town. So it's hard for me to describe this when I vote on it, other than say that it was, it's based on, it's important that we have it, because it's gonna come to town, and we need to have a bylaw that dictates location and
Right.
aesthetic of these poles. They're gonna line the state highway.
Right, and I just heard today on a little side note that there's another, not mobility, but another company that's just approached another person in town with putting one of these sites on their property in downtown.
Right.
So
It's hard for us to regulate
one
with the
after another.
existing
They're
bylaw.
just gonna be knocking on the door for us.
It's
so.
important that we pass, it's important we have consensus. It's important enough to me that I can send everybody the language tonight, and you can read it, and we can vote on Saturday morning, but I'd rather we vote now and just know that the planning board is unanimous in the decision. Donna has approved the language, it's based on other bylaws, and it's something we need to have.
Yeah.
And Joe?
Can I,
is
yeah,
that-
can I, just sorry, I was included in all the emails between Donna and the planning board as they tried to develop this motion. I think it was Worcester and PVD, I think, were the 2 towns. There is some impetus to try to get this done sooner than later, because especially in the aesthetics part, federal legislation's only going to give you the ability to enforce the aesthetics aspect of it if you adopt those regulations by, I think it's
Right.
July of this year. So your opportunities to
It's
get
closing, right.
this into your bylaw is closing. Donna did eventually bless what they voted on last Tuesday night. So before they had it at the public hearing and talked about it and took their final vote, Donna had suggested that it was sufficient. So.
All right. I'd entertain a motion then.
I move that we, Board of Selectmen, recommend favorable action on Article 3-3.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous?
Appreciate it.
All right.
Mark Johnson just communicated me about left his cell phone here.
Oh.
So if someone sees his cell phone, it's Mark.
Right, might be on the podium or something. All right, any other discussion on the script? All right, perfect. All right, last thing on our agenda tonight is the application, our second reading for the road races, walks, or block parties. Chief Stevens was in last time, spoke about it very briefly, but this is just kind of a form for all those people and streamlining the whole process. I don't think anything's changed in it, it's just our second reading. We had a little brief discussion about it, but did you want to?
I have some really small changes.
Sure.
Where it says date and time of event, below that it says, please attach route of the event.
I think that's if there's a route.
No, I was going to say, please attach route or location of the event. I think we should,
Okay, I like that.
so if it's a block party, and I like if we could do something that says start time and end time. Because the time of event, I think even the chief, if you thought about it, would say, okay, I want to know, you're saying it's getting over at 11, or it's getting over, it's starting at 2 in the afternoon. So, and it's just,
Sorry, go ahead.
no problem. And then a little pet peeve of mine, so where it says office use only, and above that it says signature of authorized agent or organization, I just always like to say printed name there too, because whoever's signing
Yeah,
it,
you
I like.
can't read it. Yeah, I want to read it.
I like to
agree.
know who's signing.
Yeah.
And that's it. So those are small, and I'm sure if everyone likes them, you can just
Yeah,
make
I'm
them.
okay
The only
with
one I
that.
had was, as you said at the top, it'd be, a recommendation, please submit 30 days prior to, something.
Oh, right.
We talked about that.
It's on the bottom.
It's on the
On the
bottom.
bottom now?
At the
Oh, it
office
is?
at least
Okay.
30
Yeah,
days
it's right
prior
in
to
this
event.
last line on it.
All right.
You had asked me
Yep.
that last time.
Yep,
Yeah.
perfect, I
Yep.
think I just didn't see it on the bottom.
All right, so we have a few changes. One was, please attach the route of the event or location, and/or location.
Yeah.
And then a time for an end of the event. And then where the signature is in the middle under the general release, a printed name as well. I think that was it, right? Mm-hmm. All right, anybody want to make a motion pending those edits?
I move we approve the application for road race, walk, or block party pending the changes discussed this evening.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it should all be this easy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
All right, that fairly concludes our,
Next meeting.
next meeting. Well, first, I've got something else to do first here, then we'll.
Sure, yeah, forgot about that.
All right, so Allison and Scott, it's your last official Monday night meeting with us besides our Saturday meeting, which is the town meeting. But I'd just like to take the time to tell you both tonight what a pleasure it's been to serve with you on this board. You've really done great for the town. I appreciate all your input, hard work, and time. So we have a couple things for you. One is, their standard Hamilton certificate. I'll hand to you here, Scott. Make sure I'm not giving you Allison's.
Thank you.
Yeah. I got more for you. Don't quite go too far. And Allison, one for you.
Whoops.
All right. And really
Thank you
appreciate
very
all the
much.
time you put in. And then I brought a few other things. Since it, being April Fool's Day, I couldn't get away with some stuff.
So appropriate.
Will you hand that to Allison? And Scott, hand that down to Scott.
Oh,
And then,
so sweet.
I'll wait till you open it. And one more for Scott. Okay, so I want you to open the big one first.
Same time?
Same time.
Soaked
Same
in
time.
water, it's all,
Fun.
I
okay.
know.
That was it.
All right, so when you see it,
Oh, I love
you gotta
it.
hold it up for the folks at
I
home.
love it. This is
So I
very
know you won't be
sweet.
with us on Monday nights unless you come, but I know you'll be home
But I'll be
on
able
your
to
couch,
knit so much
Yeah,
better.
you'll be home on your
snuggled in
couch.
this.
watching every meeting, I'm sure.
Very sweet. Thank you.
Matching too?
They are matching.
Yeah,
You can-
Together,
twins.
Yeah,
So if we show up here at a meeting wearing these?
you're
like
fine.
any special privilege? or
Yeah, you get front row seating.
Exactly.
The TV's gonna go, what the heck are those crazy people doing?
Very
And
sweet.
the other one, when you get to it, is just
Oh, I
little
love
keychain
it.
for you.
Thank you very much.
and always
I've
when you're
seen
away from
these.
home, you can remember home.
And I just got a new car yesterday, so perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
I like to echo it. I mean, this is finishing my first year on the board, and enjoy sitting next to you and work with you. You taught me that it's
Thank you.
important to be, regimented, thorough, that we are representing, Mass General Law here, and to make sure we, do the right thing. And then, Scott, you've taught me that it's important to really know the community, know the history, know the, and I've learned a lot about the town from your now. I've only been here since 8 years, so appreciate your breadth of history in the community. So look forward to working with you on the on your new a new position in town here, so.
Very much.
All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For those at home too, because I don't know how it's gonna work, but, so we didn't have anyone put in papers for assessor. So do we have a write-in campaign, do you know, Joe?
I believe there is a,
I can make a recommendation if it's appropriate.
Yeah, but I think just so, again, I don't know the law, but I believe that if anyone wanted to run for that, it's much easier for them if they actually file for a write-in campaign to the town
the
clerk's
clerk's
office.
Oh, I didn't know you could file
Versus
for it.
just telling people to write in.
All right.
So you can do both, but I think there is a step you can take to go into the town clerks to.
And say you're doing a write-in campaign.
To make it easier.
But we should tell Chris Campbell for that?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think that'd be a good
It
idea.
does make it much easier, so just.
Bud Campbell, I think, would have liked to have run again, and he had some timing issues getting his papers in. His son, Chris, also forever resident of Hamilton, great guy, teaches the high school. I know he's interested. So if you want, I'll follow up with him and ask him to talk to the town clerk, just so that
that'd be
makes
good.
it a little better.
I think it makes it, and especially, I don't think in town we have two Chris Campbells, but you could in theory, which can really get messy.
Gotcha, yeah.
So if he makes it known, it's a better.
All right, so you can write in Soup Campbell, is that all right? That would be more popular like that?
But it's just a better process, so I wanted to mention that tonight if we
All
could
right.
do
Sticker
it.
campaign.
Yeah. So we've got new business here, consideration topics for discussion, future board selectmen meetings. So I wanted to bring up that we have our next meeting, which you two won't be at, but the rest of us should be, but I won't be. I'll be out of town because it's spring break that week. And I'm curious if we want to still have the meeting. We'll have two newly elected members, and that will really only give them about 1 day to get sworn in because of the holiday on Monday. And then I won't be here on Tuesday for the meeting. I'll be in Florida. So I'm wondering if we want to consider moving the meeting or we want to keep it. I would suggest moving it so I could be here. But it's up to the remaining
I have no issue
board
moving the
members.
meeting. I think that for you to be there for the first meeting would be appropriate, so the following
All right.
Monday.
So let's try and plan the following.
which, do you want to do it the following week?
Yeah, let's do it the following week.
So I won't be here for the following week. So, planning to be here for the 16th. I told my wife, go ahead and take the kids to see your mother during the first part of the vacation weekend, and I'll join you at Easter and stay a couple of days later. My flight doesn't get back until
Unless
the evening of Tuesday.
So then I guess
Actually,
let's-
if it's Tuesday evening, I could probably make it. My flight is supposed to get back Tuesday afternoon. I could probably be here. I just won't have a lot of time to prepare for the meeting.
Joe,
but
I
can
appreciate
physically be here.
your
I'll be here.
diligence in
I'm
the
gonna be here
job and
Tuesday.
moving your travel plans around that.
Do we want to then, if we do a bye week and we just meet the third Monday, would that upset anything we've got going on?
I'll look right now.
You know what I mean? We just skip that one meeting on the 16th and we do the next
Are we
normal
required to
scheduled
have?
meeting.
Are we required to have?
No, we're not required to have.
Meet without me on the Monday.
Yeah, that makes sense, just wait for the next Monday.
Just wait for the next Monday.
Yeah.
We just skip a meeting.
Next Monday, the 22nd?
Is that our next regular scheduled meeting? After the,
No, the next one is the 29th.
Your next move, you
sorry.
only meet the 1st and 3rd, so your next
Right.
meeting wouldn't be till May 6th. So you could meet the 22nd or 29th and still have a meeting before May 6th.
Oh, yeah.
that made no sense to me.
Your
Sorry, so
scheduled
we have a
meetings-
meeting on the 16th scheduled.
Right.
And if we skip that regular scheduled meeting and we don't do one the week after to make up for it, and we go to our regular scheduled meeting, what day is that one?
May 6th.
May 6th.
The problem is
You'd be
the
almost
problem
a
is
whole month.
5
You'd be almost-
Mondays in April.
Right.
And we're meeting the 1st and the 3rd. If we don't meet the 3rd, we don't meet for, there's 4
Right, we missed the
Mondays.
whole thing.
We missed the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd.
Would have
a
a
whole month
whole-
off.
So what if you met the 29th?
Yeah, let's.
29th I could
let's-
be here.
Okay, let's do the 29th, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to write you in here right now.
Yeah,
The planning board is meeting at 7 o'clock.
on the
Planning board
29th.
meets on the 29th?
Don't know why. It's meeting on a Monday. But you can look into that. Joe, maybe that's a mistake.
Yeah, it's an odd.
Yeah.
Because they're not on here right now.
Yeah, so I don't know why it's posted that way.
Well,
Yeah.
let's plan on the 29th, and then if we're double booked with the planning board, we'll shuffle some venues with somebody.
Yeah, I got us both up there with question marks.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Any new business from anybody?
No, I enjoyed working with you all, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Allison.
I know all your intentions are always for the best of the residents of the town, and I think, Joe, you've been a wonderful addition to our town.
Thank you. I'm sorry to see you go. I've actually enjoyed working with you. You taught me a few things in the last 6 months. You keep me on my toes, so. We'll,
I'd
our
like to
door's
say
always
thank you
open.
to Scott, and I consider you a spark plug.
Thank you.
You really did a damn good job.
Thanks very much. I appreciate
Thanks, Duke.
that.
Thank you, Duke.
All right, barring any other comments, I'll make a motion would be great.
You want to do it? If you're last?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody at home.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Allison,
Yeah.
would you care to come to Town Hall on Friday morning at 10 o'clock? Annabella would like to have a little cake and some coffee with you all.
Sure.
Come here at 10 o'clock on Friday morning, Memorial Room. Talk a little bit, and then we have to be done by 11 because I have to go do the walkthrough for annual town meeting at 11 at
Will the
high school.
investigator be here?
I don't think so. He hasn't called me. So I don't know.
It's very sweet. Annabelle.